This is the Extra Point Podcast. During this podcast, we will dive deeper into our Sunday teaching and share practical next steps for your faith journey. Now, let's kick off the Extra Point.
Hey, I'm Cheryl Ross, the Next Steps and Discipleship Pastor here at Southridge Church, and I'm with Aleigha Tucker, our Trellis student who is interning with us, and she spoke with us on Sunday from our Sent series in the book of Acts. We're in Acts chapter 9. But before we really dig in, I want to make sure that if you haven't liked or subscribed to this podcast, you go ahead and do so. Make sure to share it with someone. And that way you don't miss out on things. And you can also share it with someone who needs it. So Aleigha, can you give us just a quick recap of what you spoke with us about on Sunday?
Yeah, so I really focused in on, we were in Saul's conversion, and I focused in more on Ananias and him doing it scared, but doing it anyway. Regardless of the fear that he might have had, whenever God said go to Saul,
Right.
he went anyway, even if he was scared. So that's kind of where my focus was, because I think a lot of the times we hear the story of Saul's conversion and we focus more on Saul, and we don't get to hear a lot about Ananias or what he might be feeling or what he might experience whenever God is saying, hey, go to Saul. And you're like, wait, whoa. Like, that Saul, the Saul, like from Tarsus that is coming, like, you know what I mean? Like the way that he probably felt and encountered and like, you know, whatever. So yeah, that's where it was.
Awesome. So that's a very good point, because I think, like, I also loved how you talked about how, you know, Ananias was not an apostle. Yeah. You know, he was just a believer kind of out there like Philip was, right? But we were introduced to Saul in chapter 8, verse 1, where it was like Saul was one of the witnesses of Stephen's killing, right?
Yes.
He's the one who like held the coats, like at the end of that story, like it shows like he was there holding their coats basically, or their robes. And then, you know, Saul continued to go persecute, and you shared that like he wasn't just doing it in the main area that he was in. He was traveling far to do this. And I loved that you shared that like for Ananias, and for all of us, like we often, you know, we're afraid to do the things that God is asking us to do.
Yes.
But we can still stay faithful even through our fear. And you shared about how like the mission is greater than the fear. I like to say like the reward's worth the risk, right? Like the reward of what could happen is really worth that. But it's interesting because when we're introduced to Saul, like towards the beginning of the chapter, it says, it makes a comment of he's wanting, he asks permission to go and find those who are like people who are part of the way. Yeah. Right. And we just kind of hit on it briefly, but like if you're Star Wars fans like me, you might have heard the phrase when they're like, this is the way, right? But it's not a Mandalorian thing necessarily. What does the way mean?
The way was what they called the early Christians, like what would be Christians today. The way is part of the early church.
Yeah. Great.
Basically.
Yeah. That's it. Like, so before we had the word Christian, that was what they called it, because it was a way, like the way of living that the early church had was like just so different from everything else that they called it the way. Now, when Ananias is first, you know, spoken to from the Lord, when he first hears the Lord, he says this phrase. He says, "Here I am, Lord." And you mentioned how it's, you know, we see this several times throughout scripture. But where else do we see it? What's one of those more popular ones that maybe we could think of or look to? And what could this actually, like, how would this phrase come up for us in our faith journey today?
Yeah, well, that's a good packed question. I like that. So Moses is one who actually says, "Here I am, Lord." I believe it's even in the psalmist right in there, "Here I am, Lord." And it's just literally a posture of being available, being available for God to use, being available for God. And so we can use that today ourselves whenever God is saying, hey, I actually need you to do something. Before he even tells us, like, if we hear the voice of God or we hear it through someone else, like however God speaks to us, just saying, I'm available before we even know exactly what that looks like. I don't know how to answer that question.
Yeah.
Really?
No,
But
I think that was great. That's a great little question. I think another thing that comes to mind of when I see this is with Samuel,
Yeah.
right? When he is just young Samuel, before he's ever like a prophet or anything, you hear the story, he's sleeping. He thinks that it's, his master, you know, he's like, did you call me? And he's like, no, go back to sleep. And like, it happens several times. And then he realizes what's going on. And he says, when you hear it again, say, here I am, Lord.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the ways that I actually use this, in the way that you're saying, is that like, whenever I'm trying to have those, that time of like silence and stillness with God, is I'll often like start it out with like, here I am, Lord.
Yes.
Like just me as I am, with no like anything, here I am. And I think that is a beautiful practice to kind of start of like, hey, before you're asking anything, before you know anything that God wants you to do, just say,
here I am.
Hey, here I am, Lord.
Yeah.
What do you have for me today? Like,
yeah. That's funny that you actually mentioned that, because the past couple months, before I do anything, like whenever I am in prayer, like especially for something, like I know that I can feel when God is telling me I need to do something, but I don't know exactly what. I will literally say, here I am. Like, here I am, God. Whatever you need from me, just make it clear.
Yeah.
Because I want to be your faithful servant. Like, I want to serve you faithfully, and I want to go and I want to spread this message, and I want to share about you and the goodness that you have done in my life, but the goodness that you've done in other people's lives. And I want people to be able to experience that same thing.
Yeah.
So how can you use me? Because here I am. Like, I'm ready. I'm available. Use me.
Yeah.
And so when we have that sort of heart posture, that sort of lifestyle, because I don't think it's just like a heart posture, I think it's a lifestyle. When we live that, here I am, we are able to live that sent life. We're able to help people see who Christ is, and they get to experience him at his fullness and have a changed life, have a changed person, a changed being.
Yes.
You know what I mean? From the inside out. And so anyway, that felt rambly, bunch of different, it's fine.
Stop.
Okay.
Stop trying to explain away.
Yeah, I don't have to explain things.
No, that was actually very good. And I think I think it is a lifestyle.
Yeah.
Because I even think of it as like, as you're going, because that's like with the Great Commission, right? It's like, go and make disciples. And they say like, when you actually take it back into the context, it's more like of a, as you are going.
Yes.
And that's what you kind of actually see with like Philip, like wherever he went, he just shared the gospel.
Yes.
And I think if we can have that heart posture and that mindset of like, as we're going to the store, as we're going to the pharmacy, as we're going to the doctor's office, like, how can we say, here I am, Lord, like, use me, like, here I am, Lord, whoever it is that you want me to talk to, smile at, like, I was teaching kids last night and I shared with them that like, joy is contagious and smiles are contagious. Like it's like research shows that I think it's like 95% of people, when you smile at them, will smile back because it's just reactive. It's contagious. Yeah. And how like you can actually spread that wherever you go. And I was watching an interview of someone that was like he actually is an atheist, but was interviewing a really like, I can't remember the name, but if I said it, a lot of people would know it. Older man, theologian, and he shares with him, he says, you know, there's something that I notice about a lot of the Christians that I interview. There's something different about them. You just embody a peace that I don't see in anybody else, that I don't see in non-Christians. He said, I've seen joy in others that I don't see in non-Christians. And I think that like we forget so much the ability that we have to like show and embody, you know, Christ to people in just our demeanors.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that we shouldn't use words when we're given the opportunity. But I think that, like, man, if you're going to the store and you're just a grumpy person out there, like not being kind to those that you interact with, that doesn't embody Christ.
No.
Like, and you might be having a bad day. You might be running late. You might need to go get more diapers because you just used your last one. But like, you get to choose how you react and interact with the world.
Yes.
And we have that opportunity to live in that posture of, here I am being sent wherever I'm going.
Yes.
How can I do this?
Yeah. I also want to hit on something. So Ananias, when he said the "Here I am, Lord," he didn't know what was going to happen afterwards. Like, Ananias is only mentioned this one time.
Yeah.
But Saul goes on to, you know, change his name to Paul and be one of the people that we look to every single day in the New Testament. Like, he wrote a large portion of the New Testament. And so Ananias didn't know what his "Here I am, Lord" was going to lead into. It led into someone who went and made more disciples wherever he was at. You know what I mean? He lived that sent lifestyle after Ananias did that one. Seems like a little bitty thing, but it was huge.
Yes, it was, because I think, like, in the act of, like, him, you know, Paul receiving his sight again, the scales falling off, like that's like a fuller, more physical part of that conversion, I think, for him, where, like, when you think of, I've now received sight, like, where I was blind, like, I can now see. It's that aspect of, like, now he knows the fullness, and it's not just an experience that he had there, but now there's another party involved.
Yes.
And, like, God told him, this person's going to come and do this. If Ananias had said no, we don't know where the story would end up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, he'd be one of those that, like, y'all say you're going to do these things. You say you believe, but you're not actually following through.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great part to think about as well. But so now Ananias, like, his "Yes, Lord," or "Here I am, Lord," turns into a "But, Lord," right? Like, when he's like, "But Lord, don't you know who this is?" Like, I've heard about this guy, and I'm not sure if you know. And I loved how you brought in, like, just that humanity and that understanding that, like, a lot of times we have those feelings too.
Yes.
Like, God, you're telling me to go ask this lady if I can come help her with gardening, but I don't even garden it. Like, you know, you have some of these things where you're like, I don't know, God. And you want to question and talk it through. And it shows kind of like his hesitancy, his fear that could be wrapped up in this. And, but a lot of times, like, we often think that if we're scared or afraid to do something, or we're hesitant to do something, that it's like a roadblock, or maybe it means that, like, we're not actually supposed to do it. We're like, I shouldn't be afraid to do what God's, you know, something that God would want me to do. And so we actually are like, nah, like, we'll use it to reason away those things. But, like you shared, that's really not the case. That, like, in this, and many times, we are scared, but that doesn't mean that we're not called.
Yes.
Like, I think that was the phrase that you said that I was like, oh, yes. Like, you were like, it doesn't mean that we're not called. It doesn't mean, you know, that you can't do something. Share with us a little bit more about how, you know, some real practical examples, even the simplest things of what this could look like, of reframing our fear to allow us to be faithful still.
Yeah. I'm trying to think here for a second.
Like, what's some things that maybe even in your personal life, personal faith, you have been afraid of, but you did it anyway, and you realized along the way that, like, oh, that's okay that I'm afraid.
Yeah, I've shared some of the things. I shared some of it in the sermon itself. But there's also been things like, even in parenting, I would say, even in my parenting, I have been scared, like, that I'm not doing it right, that I'm not teaching them enough, that I'm not spending enough time with them, or, you know what I mean? And they're going to have a different view of me or something. But those aren't real fears. And I mean, they are real. They can be real things, but that's not the reality of the fear. It's just a fear. It's not truth. And so I've had to learn that I want to spend more time with them, first of all. And so, like, little bits of time with them is enough. Like, they don't need the whole day with me. Matter of fact, my kids don't want the whole day with me glued to my hip. Like, but even, like, little things, like, just in the moments where they're feeling scared or they're feeling, like, upset or angry, like, I really try to turn the direction. Okay, let's pray for a second. Let's just pause and pray, because this isn't real. Like, what we're feeling is not real. This doesn't control the rest of our day. It doesn't control the moments. Like, it's just real quick. So, like, that's probably one of the things. I'm kind of, I don't know.
Yeah. I think there's probably a lot of very minute things. Like, even with you and the interactions that I've seen with you, like, I saw at a funeral the other day.
Oh, yeah.
You went and talked to a lady because you were like, does she go to our church? I feel like I know her.
Oh, yeah.
And you went up and talked to her. And for a lot of people, they wouldn't do that. They'd just be like, oh.
Yeah.
And I heard you say, I don't know, maybe I was just supposed to meet you.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, in those moments, even, it can be very much like, we can be very scared to not do simple things like that. I think it's like, even as simple as, like, sometimes, you know, you lead the prayer team.
Yeah.
I'm part of that team, and there have been times for me that, like, I've been up there and I know that somebody's supposed to come pray with me, but they weren't coming, and I felt that, like, nudge of, you go to them.
Yes.
And I was like, okay. And it can feel like that's a little nerve-wracking to be like, hey, go up to them at their seat and be like, hey, can I pray with you?
Yes.
Walk away from my station that I'm supposed to be at for them to come to me and go to them. But then I'm like, that's what Jesus does, isn't it?
Yes.
But anyway,
that's actually funny you mentioned that, because
I know you've done it before.
I've done it. I actually waited because I was like, no. I'm not supposed to do this. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know. I'm not doing it. And then we dismiss, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I was really supposed to pray with them. And so I chased them out in the lobby, and I'm like, hey, I'm sorry. I was supposed to pray with you. Can we go to the prayer room? And so we went to the prayer room.
And here's the thing. Most of the time, like, I don't know that I've ever been told no when I've asked somebody if I could pray with them.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've actually ever been told no.
Yeah.
Even in New York City, because this was the job that I always, like, volunteered for when I went on the trip that we went on before. We had 3 different locations that we went to along the week, and I always was like, can I be the person to pray with people? And I would just go down through the line and, like, just say hello, like, whatever. And then if I felt that prompting, and usually I was like, hey, could I pray with you?
Yeah.
They literally always said yes. Even, like, outside the church, when we were at, like, the church location, we did something outside the church the one day, and literally my lanyard that I wore had it in English on one side and Spanish on the other. And I know more Spanish than what I'm confident using.
Yeah.
But I knew how to say, do you need prayer in Spanish, because of my lanyard and whatever.
Yeah.
And so, like, literally, I remember asking a lady, and she's like, see, and then starts saying all this stuff really fast. And I was like, I'm looking at her, and she says, you know, asked me if I speak Spanish. And I was like, very little. And so then I was like, but that's okay. Like,
yeah.
So I still just prayed for her, because I'm like, God knows exactly what it is.
Yeah.
But, like, even that, when there was a language barrier, I still had people who said yes and let me pray for them.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, sometimes that fear, like, sometimes it's big things. Sometimes it's, like, out of the comfort zone. But I think sometimes it is, like, even those small scale things that, like, we miss, or we think, like, we don't think about it in that way.
Yeah.
You're called to be your kid's mom.
Yeah.
Like, God chose you to be your kid's mom. Nobody else.
Yeah.
And so there is a calling within that you get to be a part of every day.
Yes.
And no matter what you feel, God knew you could do it.
Yes.
Like, and I think I actually literally prayed with another mom on Sunday who was like, I just don't, I don't feel like I'm doing what I should be. Like, I feel like I'm failing at this. And I'm like, no, like God chose you to be your son's mom.
Yes.
For a reason.
Yes.
Like, and I love that you brought that up. I think that there's even like just that, there's been times where I felt like I should compliment somebody in a grocery store line.
Oh yeah.
Like their scarf, whether maybe I didn't actually like it, but that's exactly what I felt like I was supposed to say.
Yeah.
And then you might think that's dishonest, but like, I mean, it was a pretty pattern, but I wouldn't wear it. I didn't like it for me, I should say, but it looked really nice on the ladies. So anyway, like I've done things like that then they just like open up, like, and I think that like, even if it feels weird and awkward, a lot of times we're like, oh man, I'm so awkward. Like, everybody is.
Yeah. Yeah.
In reality, everybody is.
Yes.
You all have those awkward. It's awkward to say hello to somebody you don't actually know.
Yeah.
And ask them anything.
Yes.
Past that. Like, I mean, you go a lot of other places, people don't say hello to you.
No.
They do not. Like, we're in an area where people are much more friendly.
Yeah.
We have a couple people from New Jersey that go here, and they were like, I'm just so surprised, like how many people talk to you out in public and how many people talk about God out in public. She's like, they don't do that in Jersey.
Yeah.
Like, and so if you're local, I think like a lot of those small things or big things you can do and do scared and not have to fear as much.
Yes.
And I know I mentioned this last week, but I still can't get it past my mind of that. Like, we need to remember that as sent people, just as Jesus sent out the disciples on their first little outing, he told them, go, to these different places. If they reject you, shake the dust off your feet and move on to the other town. And he says they're not rejecting you. They're rejecting God who is within you.
Yes.
God who sent you. And I think that like, if we can just get that in our mind, because even for Ananias, like, let's imagine for a moment that he goes and then Saul kicks him out, like, or Saul rejects him and says whatever. Sometimes those moments of us doing things are just simply an act of obedience.
Yes.
Like, to train us in obedience moments.
Yes.
And the result is not what matters. Us doing
it's
the
thing.
act
of us just doing it. Of just listening.
Yeah.
And responding and acting. Yes.
Yeah. So, is there anything else from the sermon or from, anything within what you shared with us on Sunday that you would just like to share, clarify, repeat?
Yeah, so I actually shared about giving my testimony at the recovery event, which was great. But I had shared that I don't go to meetings anymore because I have Jesus. And I just want to clarify. Meetings are great. Meetings are good. And if that is what works for you, do it. If that is where you find purpose, like your calling, do it. Because some of you might be going to meetings. Some of you might feel like you're called to lead a meeting in your home or lead a meeting at a different church or something. Do that because God can use that as your ministry ground. That's just not my ministry ground.
Right. And
I found my community of people here at the church, like with the staff, really. Like, you guys are my community. You are my people. Whereas I know plenty of people who go to church, attend church, are faithful in serving in the church, but still go to meetings. Because they have a community of people there as well. Yeah. And so that is their ministry field. And they get fed there. They get full there. They get something different there than what they get here. Yeah. And also, they bring something different to the meetings. Yes. And so, just like we said, it's a lifestyle and you take it wherever you go. The same thing happens at those meetings. Like, I had fears that weren't real. And a lot of the times we have fears that aren't real. So you might have a fear about bringing God into a meeting. Do it anyway.
Yeah.
Like, do it anyway.
Yeah.
I remember going to meetings and I would be scared to talk about God. I remember going to meetings before I was a Christian and I would hate to hear about God. But I think back to some of those shares that people said about God.
Yeah.
And I know it impacted me in some way because I remember it. They were watering a seed that had been planted and I didn't even realize it in those meetings.
Yeah.
And so, like, I always got something from the meetings when I went. Now it's just, that's not my mission field anymore.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah. And that's okay. And thank you for clarifying that. Cause I think that, I think about people like my mom who, I mean, she is all out with Jesus. She is one of the most like bold, faithful people that I know. Like she literally, sometimes I'm like, Mom, what are you doing? Like, that's crazy. Yeah. But cause she's on a fixed income and she's, you know, this mom down the road who struggles and, you know, spends her money in places that she shouldn't in regards to that. She found out like that she needed the baby she had needed bottles and she went to the Dollar Tree and got her bottles like with the little bit of money she had. And she's like, I just talk to people and I just do this. But like she is an avid meeting person. Yes. She hit 10 years again, like she's been in long-term recovery, but, you know, years ago, over a decade ago, she met a man and got married and he was an addict and she fell back into things, but she's 10 years sober now. And she literally, I couldn't take her to dinner on Saturday to celebrate with her because she was leading a meeting online. She was like, no, I host and lead a meeting online on Saturday nights. I can't do that. Yes. And I think that's a place that she's found purpose. And but I think that like, you know, for many of us, you might even be scared to go to a meeting and that's what you need. But I think that regardless of, you know, of this, like it's important to know that what works for one person isn't what another person needs. Yes. And that's okay. Yes. But I think the overarching thing is that like you can still stay faithful to God, to what it is that he wants you to do, to being sent. Yes. No matter how you feel. Yes. Whether you're afraid or not, like maybe you're bold like my mom. But you can still stay faithful. Yes. And faithfulness is key, especially in helping to make disciples and be disciples who make disciples and continuing that on. Yeah. So do it scared, but do it anyway. I hope this was helpful for you. We will be back here again next week with another extra point and more practical next steps for your faith journey.
Thanks for tuning in to The Extra Point. Be sure to subscribe to the Southridge Church podcast and tune in every Wednesday for another episode of The Extra Point.